My name's Emma Price from In the Woolshed, and I've been dyeing with natural dyes for probably over 30 years. I obviously sell my yarns commercially, and therefore my palette is actually quite a limited palette that I use. So I want to talk to you today about the colours I do use and why I use them, and how, to a certain extent, I'll try and explain how I use them as well. So where do we start? I'm not going to, let's start with Indigo to get that one out of the way, because I can't go fully into Indigo because it's quite a complicated dye. It's a different method to the rest of the dyes. It is, yeah, I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but obviously the Indigos are really beautiful. I work with indigo cakes, so there is a full indigo cake there, and quite literally it gets pounded up in my mortar and pestle there, and off we go. So in the back here with the blanket on it, that is my indigo vat. It is a permanent vat, and I make up a concentrate that I then use in my big vat. I would love to say it is 100% natural, but it isn't. And so I use natural indigo, but I do have to add some chemicals to it. If I was going to do a full-on natural indigo vat, I would have to keep my vat permanently at a set temperature, and I can't do that. So I do use, to reduce the vat down and get the oxygen out, I do use hydros in my vat. But the lovely colours that you can get from an indigo, so when we're using, to get our greens, we have to dye our yarn first in yellows, and I use two yellows. I use Fustic, which is a wood, which is let's have a look at it. It's kind of got a plaster on that finger, so it is it's a wood, and I also use Weld, which Weld grows on the side of the road. Really, it's a weed, and you basically use the whole of the plant, and that is dried out to Weld there. The reason I use two yellows is because I then can get two different greens. So we dye it with yellow first, and then when it goes into the indigo pot, I can get my two greens. So let me show you. So with Weld, you get what I call grass greens. So these lovely kind of vibrant, beautiful greens that you kind of see out in grassland, I suppose, which is why I call them grass. You can get really lovely lines. It depends how much of the indigo that you put onto them afterwards. So I dye in yellow first with Weld, and then it'll dip into the indigo vat afterwards. The Fustic gives a yellow as well, but it's not quite as bright a yellow, so you end up getting these lovely, what I call sea greens from it. Absolutely divine. So I've got lovely blue face Leicester there, our lovely Llyn, which is grown from our flock of sheep on the farm out there, and I've got some Wensleydale there, which they all the different wools take the colours slightly differently, but there we go on those. Okay, so that is indigo really covered. To get the deeper shades with the indigo, you have to keep re-dipping to get it rather than just doing one dip, but keep me away from talking about too much indigo because it's one of my favourite subjects, but we can't cover it all today. So let's go back to the natural dyes. So before we can produce the colour on these yarns, we have to use a fixing agent. There are plenty of fixing agents out there, different ones, a lot of metals. I use alum. The full name of it is aluminium potassium sulfate, and I also use a dash of cream of tartar. Now, my method of dyeing with natural dyes is quite kind of random, quite loose, apart from the mordanting and the indigo dyeing. And the mordanting is one of the most important aspects of the whole process. You have to get that right. Without it, these can fade quite quickly. but the mordanting will help fix the colour to it. So over in the corner there I have 2 vats for my mordanting, because logwood, which we get our purple shades, which I will come back to that in a minute, needs more mordanting, so more alum than the rest of the dyes. So I have 2 vats over there. One is for my logwood, and one is for the rest of them. So how much do I use? So for most of the dyes it's 8% alum to dry weight of wool. The rest of it is 22%. The logwood is 22% to dry weight of wool, and I stick to that quite adamantly. If you keep the bath going, which I do, so in there is a bath already, you can use half that amount. So you can use 4% and 11%. So 11% on a second bath for your logwood and 4% on the rest of the dyes. So that's quite good, because it obviously reduces the amount of alum you use. There has been talk about a problem with alum and dementia. Who knows? I don't know the exact science of it, but I do, because I'm using it quite a lot, I do mask up when I'm mixing it in hot water to put it into my solution. I think if you're doing a small amount, as long as you're in an aired environment, I think you're all right. But if you are using it a lot, it is worth masking up. So that is the mordanting I use. Other mordants, the reason I use alum is the fact that it can go on the compost heap, so it is a natural substance for me to discard, and it doesn't harm the environment so much. The other one that you can use that's even more natural, if you like, so to speak, is your oxalic acid, which comes from rhubarb leaves, and that is quite a nice one. You could use some onion skins and some rhubarb leaves, and you're off and away, and you've got some beautiful colours. Commercially, I don't use that because I can't quantify the amount of mordant in the leaves, and also with onion skins, as much as it's lovely, the colour does shift on you. So you could end up buying a yarn that's one colour, and then a couple of months later, it's actually with onion skins, it gets kind of darker really, not lighter. So, but as far as kind of like having a play at home, I think it's a lovely project to do. Going on to my palette, lots of people ask me this, which is my favourite dye that I use, and I have to say I'm probably a bit of an indigo person, but madder has to be my favourite colour. So madder is a root. I had a go at growing it last year, and unfortunately a frost got it in the winter this year. So this is dried madder, and it is a chopped up, I keep showing you my plaster finger there, but it's a chopped up root. The reason I like madder is the fact that it is such an ancient dye. So we're talking about 5000 BC, okay? And the colours that you can get out of it are absolutely divine. It does like hard water, so if you're in a soft water area, that is a problem. For me here in Kenilworth, I'm actually in a hard water area, so I can at least buy my soft water. But those are the beautiful shades. So I've got a lovely deep shade on our mini linen wool pots there, on Blue Face Leicester, and I've got Blue Face Leicester in silk on a paler shade there. So I think it's the fact that it was discovered so long ago and has been used for so many years. I just think it is amazing, absolutely amazing. So what other colours do I use? Mustard is becoming more and more of a favourite of mine too. I've got it dyed up here in the Blue Face Leicester and silk there, and in our absolute scrumptious kid mohair and silk. I buy that in rhubarb root as a powder. Keep it in there. It is just literally powdered form there. So you can buy in all of these in powdered form as well. The reason I try and buy it in whole rather than the powdered form is because you can get more use out of it, which I will come back to you in a minute. Let me just go through the rest of the colours that I use. So the other one, which is absolutely scrumptious, which needs more mordanting, is logwood. And logwood is here. That's a really rich, beautiful, it is a wood. and that's where you can get all your purples and your lavenders and your greys from. So again here I've got Blue Face Leicester in the grey and in the deeper shades, and again it takes the kid mohair, is absolutely beautiful. We've got it in the slubby there, beautiful greys, absolutely lovely. It is a bit of a tricky dye, is Lovewood, so you can end up getting navies. I've even got browns out of it. So it just depends on the pH. So if you're finding that you're not getting your purples out of it that you want, you need to look at maybe sending your solution slightly towards the alkali solution, which you can do that with using some, well, that's cream of tartar, some soda ash, which is an alkali. Pop that in with it, and you can turn it back to your purples. To get the greys, that's a very weak bath, so you have to watch when you put it in, because it can then start turning more purple or towards the purples, because that's another weak bath, but we've got the purples there. Okay, and Cochneal I use. So there's my beautiful shades of Cochneal. So Cochneal I buy in the dried beetles. Sorry to all you vegetarians, I am actually vegetarians, but I do use, so these beetles are they grow on cacti in warmer climates, and I buy them whole, and then to actually get your deep colours is actually quite tricky. So I always make sure that I've got if I can hold that up to the, hopefully you can see the colour coming through on that. Dripped it now. I do soak it so that you can get the nice deeper shades coming through. Let me move that out of the way so we don't drip it on anything. It is a bit smelly, I can smell that now, obviously you guys can't, but that is a bit smelly, but that's how you get your nice deeper shades of Cochneal. So my palette, so I've covered all my colours now, is actually really limited. And the reason that I have such a limited palette is because these dyes are probably some of the strongest dyes that can be found in natural dyes. There are many dyes out there, natural dyes, and there seems to be a sort of a growing need to dye with, I mean, I even saw a post on social media using dandelions. I find it difficult because most of these dyes that are from the hedgerows, such as dandelions and all sorts of things, are fugitive, which means they will fade. So your avocado skins, your dahlias, all of those beautiful colours that you can get from those, they fade. I'm really sorry to say that, but they do fade. So the colours I use will be as strong as any chemical dye, as long as you don't put them out in the harsh sunlight, but they do stay. And to get the variety of colours from here, you can just mix them. So you can actually start mixing your logwood with your cochineals. You can over dye with cochineal, and your madder actually is really pretty. You get lovely colours there. You can also do extra things, like I pop my cochineal actually into a iron bath at the end, and it sends the colour off. So instead of being that bright baby pink, it's more of a smoky pink. I also put all my logwoods into an iron bath. Iron dulls colour slightly down, so it shifts the colour, but it means that you can get more of a palette of all your things. So I think that I have covered it. Let's just have a quick talk about pots and pans. As you can see at the back here, I've got lots of pots and pans going on, because what I do is I actually stew up my, so this in here is it's a permanent madder really pot here. I stew up my colour and I drain off the liquid that will go into the dye vat. So I don't put the dye stuff with the actual fibres. And the reason for that is a couple of reasons really. A, it stops the actual dye stuff getting caught up in the fibres. and it also means that it's reusable. So that dye stuff can be used again and again afterwards. And you can do that with all the dye stuff. So I think we are pretty much covered on what we do here in the dye studio in the woolshed. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks, bye.